In a world where pain and loneliness often go unseen, animals remind us of something powerful: that love, loyalty, and courage can come from the most unexpected places. When Sergeant Daniel Hayes returned from war, he was not the same man who had left home. The uniform came back neatly folded, the medals polished, but the man beneath them was fractured. His body carried scars, long marks on his skin where shrapnel had torn through. Yet the deepest wounds were hidden, carved into his mind. At night he heard echoes of gunfire, the cries of men calling for help, the metallic taste of dust and blood. He would wake up gasping for air, clawing at the sheets, believing he was still on the battlefield. Doctors called it PTSD. For Daniel, it felt like a prison without walls, one he couldn't escape even in his own home. He believed his life was already over, even though he was still breathing. Daniel's house stood at the very edge of town, a small, weathered structure with peeling paint and a sagging porch. Inside it was tidy but lifeless. One chair by the table, one cup in the sink, one set of boots by the door. Each morning Daniel would sit at the table staring at the empty chair across from him. He imagined sometimes that someone sat there, his late father, a fallen comrade, or the family that no longer visited. But the chair always stayed empty. The silence was suffocating. He rarely answered the phone, and eventually the calls stopped coming. Even his neighbors, who once waved kindly, grew hesitant, unsure of what to say to the broken soldier on the porch. Loneliness wrapped around him like a heavy cloak, and Daniel accepted it as his fate. One bitter afternoon, Daniel stopped at the grocery store. His mind was elsewhere, lost in the fog that had become his daily companion. But then his eyes caught movement near the entrance. A dog sitting quietly against the wall. The creature was painfully thin, ribs visible beneath tangled fur, shivering from the cold wind. Daniel slowed his steps. The dog did not bark or beg. It simply lifted its head, and their eyes met. In those tired, soulful eyes, Daniel saw something he recognized instantly. Pain, survival, a story of battles fought alone. It was as if the dog was silently saying, "I know what it means to suffer." For the first time in years, Daniel felt a flicker of connection. He tore his sandwich in half and placed it gently on the ground. The dog crept forward, cautious but trusting, and ate without looking away from him. That silent exchange stayed with Daniel long after he drove home. The next day Daniel returned to the store. There, by the same wall, sat the dog waiting. Daniel felt a strange pull in his chest, like an old door inside him had cracked open. This time he knelt down and spoke softly. "Hey, buddy." The dog wagged its tail ever so slightly, as though it understood. Day after day the ritual repeated. Daniel bringing food, the dog greeting him with cautious hope. On the third day, Daniel opened his car door and whispered, "Come on." For a brief moment he wondered if the animal would hesitate, but without a second thought the dog jumped into the seat, curling up as if it had always belonged there. Daniel drove home with a companion for the first time in years. That night, when the dog curled at the foot of his bed, Daniel whispered, "Welcome home." Days began to feel different. The silence that once smothered the house was replaced by the sound of paws tapping against the floor, the soft jingle of a collar, the steady rhythm of a tail thumping against furniture. Daniel found himself waking earlier, taking the dog, whom he named Ranger, on morning walks through quiet streets. At first it felt strange, but soon it became a routine, something to look forward to. Neighbors noticed him again. The man who once sat stone-faced on his porch now walked with a gentle smile, a loyal dog trotting beside him. Children ran up to pet Ranger, their laughter spilling into Daniel's world like sunlight breaking through clouds. For the first time in years, he spoke to their parents, exchanging small words that carried more weight than he realized. And at night, when the nightmares came, Ranger would jump onto the bed, curling close, his steady breathing anchoring Daniel back to reality. The darkness hadn't vanished, but Daniel no longer faced it alone. One night, the nightmares came harder than ever. Daniel thrashed, shouting names of men long gone, his chest heaving as if under fire again. Sweat drenched his face, and panic gripped him like iron chains. In the past, this would have ended with him smashing furniture, sinking deeper into despair. But this time, Ranger acted. The dog leapt onto the bed, pressing his body firmly against Daniel's, steady and immovable. Daniel's fists clenched in fear, loosened as he felt the warmth of that body against his own. The dog's heartbeat was strong, grounding him in the present. Daniel broke down, clutching Ranger's fur with trembling hands. Through gasps and tears, he whispered, "Don't leave me. Please don't leave me." Ranger didn't move. He didn't flinch. He stayed. And for the first time, Daniel realized he was not alone in his battles anymore. With Ranger by his side, Daniel began to step into the world again. He joined a local veteran support group, something he had avoided for years. At first he sat silently, Ranger resting at his feet. But as weeks passed, Daniel began to speak, halting at first, then with growing courage. He spoke of the war, of the pain, of the endless silence. And when words failed, Ranger's quiet presence said everything. The other veterans listened, and some even smiled, because they saw hope reflected in that bond. Soon, Daniel volunteered to help others, driving fellow veterans to meetings, sharing advice, offering a listening ear. The man who once believed he was finished had rediscovered purpose, all because a stray dog had believed in him first. Daniel once believed his life had ended when the war took away his peace. He thought the scars on his body and soul had marked him forever. But a stray dog named Ranger taught him something profound. Healing is possible, even after the darkest battles. Together they discovered laughter in the pain, light in the silence, hope in the emptiness. Daniel finally understood. The purest hearts don't always wear medals or uniforms. Sometimes they come with fur, wagging tails, and eyes that never give up on you. This wasn't just the story of a man saving a dog. It was the story of a dog saving a man. And to Daniel Hayes, that made all the difference in the world. This story is more than just about survival. It's about the unbreakable bond between humans and animals, and how sometimes they don't just share our lives, they save them.